My name is Fire Princess, and this is going to be my first Let's Play. So for my first one, I decided to play a game that not only would appeal to, mature audiences, but hopefully you'll also enjoy. This game is created by someone named, I think it's like Michaela or Michaela Laws or something. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce that, I'm sorry. Terrible with names. And it's supposed to be a really good game. I kind of started playing it to kind of get an idea of what we were going to do. And we're going to do this is going to be a play-by-play route. So it will be cut into episodes and stuff like that, but hopefully you'll enjoy it as much as I did when I first started. So let's get going. This is a fictional interactive narrative. Any character resemblance to real-life people are purely consensual. That was awful. I'm sorry. Also, the following game is made for PG-16 audiences. Please know that sexual violent themes are explored in this game. Trigger warnings, abuse, implied rape, and suicide. You have been warned. Well, that's a great way to start out a game. But thank you. Please enjoy.
Why, hello. My, aren't you a gorgeous sight? Can I be honored enough to know your name?
So for our name, we're just going to go with what they have for us. It'd just be easier that way.
A lovely name for a lovely person like you. Wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Eric, do your job.
Oh, someone's already getting scolded at the beginning of the game.
Very well. This game was produced by Seraphim Entertainment under the direction of Michaela Laws.
Oh, so it was Michaela.
Red Pie Visual Novel Engine. We truly hope you'll enjoy this story. I know I'll enjoy it, since you'll be in it.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
Eric. Fine, fine. Farewell, my sweet.
Somewhere. Oh.
Come on! Is that all you got? Wanna try me, asshole? Crap! Missed. Let's retreat for now.
No kidding. Let's get out of here.
That's right. You better run, you stupid punks. Stay out of our territory.
Call it fate or call it coincidence. That one moment of violence started a chain of events I will never forget.
This formula, created in the 70s, is one of the most important in the field of financial theory. It is used to calculate the price of European-style options and is widely used by option marketers, though there are some discrepancies that are now corrected with the modern theory.
Rain. It's been a long time since we've gotten rain around here, but it is April, so it's not exactly that surprising. Personally, I love the sound of it. The way the raindrops fell like the soft tapping of fingers. It was so soothing. Even looking at the droplets hit the glass of the window was strangely calming. For this reason, I felt lucky for having a seat next to the window. I spent more time staring outside than I did paying attention in class. The lectures in class were pretty boring. Miss Phillips' voice was passionate, but I just wasn't interested in what she was saying. And since it was the period right before lunch, all I could think about was doing other things. Honestly, I didn't really care much for economics. Sure, I had good grades in this class, but it was only because I read the textbook and did my assignments PM time. I was only taking this class because it was mandatory. If it were up to me, I would have taken another course. Luckily, it was my senior year, so after this semester, it would mean the end of high school courses forever. Thank God for that. I didn't hate high school. It was just mundane how the days drifted on and on as if there was no end to it. The only thing I really enjoyed about going to school was meeting my friends and hanging out with them. That was kind of it. In short, I was done with school. The start of second semester brought a note of finality to it. I had already applied for a few universities the semester prior, and I was expecting replies sometime in the next few months. It seemed like the start of something that would change. I stared at the faint outline of raindrops in the distance. For now, I was stuck in this class.
Miss Anderson.
Miss Phillips' raised her voice interrupted my train of thoughts. Just when I was thinking about class, I quickly turned my head to face the teacher. Hopefully she didn't pick me just because she knows that I was spacing out. Yes, ma'am?
Would you care to name the equation I set up on the blackboard?
Oh, I read that in the textbook last night. It should be the Black-Scholes model formula.
Very good as always, Miss Anderson.
Yeah. Anderson. It followed me wherever I went. Most people didn't really know me by my first name, but rather by my surname. No doubt, since the surname was the trademark for the internationally famous and philanthropic. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with words, you guys. Anderson Family Toys. The founder is my grandfather. Suzu, one of my best friends, turned around and proudly gave me a punch to the shoulder.
Kick ass, girl.
From beside me, I heard Naomi, another one of my best friends, clearing her throat in obvious disapproval of Suzu's choice of words.
She means good job.
No, kick ass sounds about right.
Miss Capini. I care to tell me who the creators of this formula were?
Some guys named Black and Scholes. Fisher Black and Myron Scholes.
Very good, Miss Patterson.
Show off. Better study next time, Suzu. Be like us and study once in a while.
Suzu rolled her eyes and slouched in her chair as Naomi gave her a small smirk. She always pouted when Naomi showed her up.
That's the end of today's lecture. Now, let's separate into groups and work on your projects. Remember, everything is due on Monday. Go ahead now.
Before I knew it, Suzu and Naomi had scooted their desks to align with mine, and we turned into the three musketeers. Whenever the teacher let the students decide on groups, we always grouped together in our little trio. It was a sheer stroke of luck that we all managed to be in the same class, so we had to at least take the opportunity and stick together as much as we could. Besides, we were most comfortable around each other than any of the other classmates. It just made sense for us to put our heads together for any kind of project. I took out the poster we were working on, rolled it open onto the three desks. We were pretty much finished with fulfilling most of the guidelines for the project, though we did still have to add a few finishing touches here and there. After all, making the poster a bit prettier. After working on making the poster a bit prettier, we sat back and inspected our work to see what we still had to do. Naomi, as usual, was the first to look for any issues. She slightly tapped a pencil against her chin, staring intently at the project. It's not gonna move, Naomi.
Alright, so let's see. We finished the budgeting section, the building leasing, and the cost for labor. What else do we need?
Suzu straightened up to look at the poster and stroked her chin. After a few seconds, her face brightened and she spoke up.
How about a company name? Huh? Did we really skip over that? Of course we did. You always go straight into the logical statistics and stuff that you completely skip over the fact. We need a name for our project. At least we caught it this time. What do we name it? Not sure. What do you think?
It always came down to me whenever there was something to be named or titled. I was the master in ending decision, even when I didn't want to be.
I like Trinity Corporations. That is way too predictable. How about the Dragon Company? What do dragons have to do with our project? What? It's a totally unpredictable name. It's Hunt. But our company sells bubble gum. Who said we can't produce spicy bubble gum? What do you think? What do you think?
Both of them looked at me essentially, even though I wasn't quite sure myself. I really didn't want to choose sides, but if it were up to me, I would have to say. Okay, so honestly, I kind of like Trinity Corporation. It's kind of pretty. I think Dragon Company is honestly more cheesy than Trinity Corporation, so we're gonna go with Trinity Corporation.
Fine. Be lame. Alright, now that we've decided on a name, now what?
As we ended our name game, a giggle scrambled my thoughts. Oh god. Huh? Who is that?
Ignore it. It's just Lisette.
I looked over my shoulder to see Lisette laughing with her circle of friends, mostly comprised of popular people. As a result, everyone in the school knew him. In the center of it all was Lisette White. She sat with a posture that indicated she was still working, but was ready to casually chat about her day. She was an endearing balance of charismatic and awkward. She was an endearing balance of charismatic and awkward, which was readily apparent when she first talked to someone. That was awful. I'm so sorry. It was easy to make her smile and laugh, and she was quite the comedian as well. Basically, she was perfect. Not that she was like a robot or anything, but she was the student that everyone else wanted to be. Lisette was bright, easygoing, and above all, had her future laid out right in front of her. Unlike the average student, she knew what she wanted to do right after high school. As a result, she was confident and ambitious, though sometimes it could rub a lot of people the wrong way. Moreover, I had known her ever since I was young, but it had ultimately resulted in a rivalry that continued today. Of course, my friends knew what was between us, and upon seeing me glance at her, they shifted their attention to her.
She doesn't even look like she's working, in my opinion.
She probably is, but she's too much of a stuck-up priss to allow herself to look like she's actually doing work.
Oh, come on, Suzu. She may be a little off-putting, but she's not the giant priss that you're making her seem to be.
The day she isn't a priss is the day I turn into you.
What's that supposed to mean?
Never mind. It's about time. Let's bail.
Unsurprisingly, Suzu was the first out of the classroom, slinging her backpack over her shoulder with ease as she quickly strolled out the door.
Her seat isn't even closest to the exit, and she always manages to be the first one out of the door. I don't think I'll ever understand that.
Just put me and you both, Naomi. She gave me a smile, as if relieved by the fact that I felt the same way as she did.
See? Why can't she just be normal like the two of us?
I'm not normal, Naomi. Don't get the wrong idea. It's Suzu, Naomi. Think about it.
Very true.
Man, you guys are slow. Are you coming or what?
We heard you the first time. Not everyone has rocket boosters attached to their legs when the bell rings.
Are you kidding me? That class was ridiculously boring. Even Miss Valedictorian here was dozing off a bit.
I do have to admit I was spacing out, and just because I answered one question doesn't mean I'm automatically the valedictorian.
Okay, so it wasn't too interesting. But you should at least pay attention when Phillips is talking about the important parts.
So you finally admit it. We're finally on the same wavelength. Welcome to the club, Patterson.
Please, don't call me by my last name. This isn't the classroom. And never in a million years will we ever see things eye to eye.
Despite this, they both burst out into laughter. Normally, anyone would think that two people so opposite would never associate with each other. However, even though they were different, their friendship somehow made a lot of sense. Maybe they were just perfect complements, a personality that didn't dedicate the possibility of their friendship. After all, we three have been best friends since preschool.
Alright, so where are we heading to first? Cafeteria? I think we can all agree that we're really hungry, especially after hearing about our company's line of deliciously spicy bubblegum.
Who would even buy that? I wonder.
Me? I would pay good money to get it.
You do like spicy food after all. We entered the cafeteria, a bustling room filled with the aromas of different kinds of food. As we got in line, we ordered our meals and chatted freely.
Cajun fries and the spicy chicken burger for me. That's my definition of a good meal.
I'll take a tuna sandwich and some juice. You're probably going to need water or something to curb all that spicy flavor, Suzu.
I can't be tamed by the likes of that. If it's spicy, then it's gotta be all or nothing.
You're crazy!
Hell yeah, I'm crazy.
I think I'm getting a migraine.
I think I'll go with what Naomi's having 2 Cajun fries and a spicy chicken burger, 2 just mac and cheese and a soda. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I love spicy food, so I'm gonna have to. And the Cajun fries and a spicy chicken burger just sounds good in general, so we're gonna go with that. Might as well go spicy today. Once we got our food, we settled down on one of the empty tables, putting our backpacks aside to finally dig into the food. Suzu leaned back in her chair, tilting it back so she could rest her feet on the table by her food.
Alright then. Is there anything we want to talk about?
Bored already?
I know. Let's talk about...
Say boys, and I will never speak to you ever again.
Aw, why not?
What's so interesting about talking about guys? Not like any of us are gonna get boyfriends anytime soon.
We don't know that. What if one of us does get a boyfriend?
Like that's going to happen, Naomi. Look at us. I'm a tiny Italian. You're a ditzy blonde.
Hey!
No offense. And Anderson here.
Well,
I guess she could land a boyfriend or girlfriend if she wants.
or girlfriend?
She can be a lesbian if she wants.
True.
That's okay, Suzu. I'm not sure I want a boyfriend yet.
Maybe she's
Oh,
just not interested.
hold on. We're going back.
Not. It's her senior year. Might as well get a boyfriend.
Maybe she's just not interested in a relationship, Suzu.
Well, it really wasn't about wanting a relationship, but more of there was no one I was interested in having a relationship with. Don't get me wrong, I'm a very open person. And there were not many interesting guys in the school. Who knows? Time will tell. Naomi looked at me, wanting to continue the conversation. However, before she could speak, the speakers in the cafe started up and announced an echo through the cafeteria.
Miss Anderson, please come to the main office immediately. Please bring your things with you.
Oh my.
Looks like our plans have been cut short. The men in white coats have finally come to get you.
Suzu, don't joke around. What if it's serious?
Fine. If something happens, just call us.
Something did happen. And it certainly was no laughing matter. Cold. It was really cold. The rain became heavier that afternoon, accompanied by rolling thunder. The skies had turned dark, though I couldn't see any of it under the black umbrella. I stared at the grass beneath my feet, unable to look up at the people weeping around me. All I could see was the damp grass underneath my feet. Only the monotone elogues that floated through my ears reminded me that I was at a funeral. It was only when the speeches ended that I finally was able to raise my head. A small gathering of people, mostly made of relatives that I didn't even know, were huddled around a simple, small grave. For a while, all I heard was the sound of raindrops on umbrellas. If it were not for the rain, everything would have been in heavy silence. I looked beside me, where my father was standing holding up a large black umbrella for our small family of 3. His face was emotionless, a strange sight next to my weeping mother. I wondered what was going through his mind. After all, etched into the smooth gray tombstone before us was his father's name. My grandfather, the one who raised me like his own daughter, had passed away that day. Slowly, people began to leave, until it was just my father, mother, and myself at the grave. A man dressed in a clean black suit under the uniform black umbrella of the funeral attendees walked towards us, introducing himself as grandfather's lawyer. He pulled out a few documents from his suitcase and began to read aloud.
And now, I shall read Harold Anderson's last will and testament.
Only my parents and I were allowed to be present for my grandfather's will. It was under the strict request of his lawyer, and there was a reason why.
And to my dearest granddaughter, I give my estate. All the furniture and decor that resides within the house shall also be given to my granddaughter.
What? I couldn't believe my ears. I had earned the family estate at 18? That was impossible, and yet it was written by my own grandfather's hand.
He passed the family estate to her? Why am I not surprised? Well, did he say anything about what will become of the CEO and chairman position of the Anderson Toys Company?
No, it is presumed that the vice chairman will succeed the position.
Even to the bitter end, he wouldn't give in. What a stubborn old man.
So the dad kind of seems like a jerk. I mean, it kind of makes sense. His dad just died, but still, I mean, he's more worried about who's going to succeed the company than, his own dad's death. Shaking his head, my father turned to face my mother with a serious expression on his face.
About the estate. Should we send her there to get used to the building? It'll be a good place for her to live after high school.
What?
Are you sure we should?
Why not? This would be a good experience for her.
Honey, what do you think?
I really wasn't sure what to say. Why did my grandfather think that I was the appropriate heir to the mansion? Was I even ready to live on my own?
Well, that seems to be it. We'll be taking our leave now. I'm sure the little heiress needs some time to adjust.
David!
No, so my dad's just a dick. Even through her raised voice, my dad wordlessly began walking back to the car, disinterested.
Don't mind him, honey. I think that your grandfather's passing really affected him. Why don't we get back home for now?
You can go ahead to the car, Mom. I think I need some time alone with Grandpa.
Oh, of course. Take all the time you need.
She gave me a quick hug and hurried after my dad. I looked around the funeral grounds, which was completely empty, save for the solemn-looking grave that laid in front of me. I'm sure that if Grandpa were in charge of arranging all this, it would have been much different. It was blatantly obvious that my dad was in charge of the whole event. Who else had buried their own family the same day they passed away? Everyone knew my grandfather's love for toys, and yet the grave was a mere stone slab on the ground, void of any warmth. My dad didn't even bother putting flowers. His disdain for my grandfather was almost pitiful. Sorry, Grandpa. I tried to force out some words, but the only thing that came out was a soaked chop. A soaked chop. Choked sob. I'm so sorry. He told me to stay strong, but right now, I'm the furthest from it. I just want to go back to before. Grandpa!
Oh, it's so good to see you again, sweetie.
I was swept into a giant bear hug, and we both laughed as he swung me around like an airplane. It was one of my favorite things about seeing my grandfather, the way he greeted me. Unlike my father, my grandfather was loving and playful even as I grew older. Sorry that Daddy couldn't come here today. He said that he wasn't feeling too good again. It was always like that. Dad missed every visit to Grandpa's house, citing that he was busy with work or wasn't feeling well.
Is that so? Well, that's okay. Daddy can come around next time. And you're here, right?
Yeah. So what are we doing today, Grandpa? Mommy says that there's a new dessert cafe open in town. Maybe we could go.
Oh, I would love to. But I've been so busy with the company these days. We're actually working on a little something. Would you like to see?
Yes. Oh, is that a toy?
It is. I was designing a new line of them. But I feel like something's missing. You don't think you could help me out, could you?
Of course. He placed the toy in my hands with a smile, and I inspected it carefully. It was beautifully crafted, and obviously a lot of work was put into it. There was one thing, though.
So, what do you think?
I think the heart on its chest should light up when you hug it. It'll be like it's alive, and then it can be a little nightlight before you go to sleep. He stroked his chin, considering my input while nodding his head. After a few moments of silent deliberation, he turned to me with a chuckle.
That's a great idea. I'll get to changing it right away. You're always like my little lucky charm, dear. You always know what to add to make the perfect toy.
Haha, well, I hope I can be like you one day, Grandpa.
You want to make toys as well?
Well, making people happy is the best feeling in the world. I don't know if I want to make toys when I grow up, though.
Don't worry too much about it. You have plenty of time to decide. Besides, you should do what makes you happy as well.
That makes sense. Daddy doesn't think of it the same way, though.
Your father. I'm sure he just wants the best for you.
I'm not so sure about that.
Sweetie, look at me.
He bent down to look at me eye level with a serious look on his face.
As much as your father may say something that doesn't make sense now, you must remember that he's always thinking about you. He loves you. There's no doubt about that. And you need to love him just as equally.
I don't hate Daddy. I really do love him. I just don't know why he's like this, though.
Your father and I have had some difficulties with each other in the past. But it's nothing that you should be concerned about.
I heard tidbits of this from my mother and various other people. The only people who had stayed quiet were my father and grandfather. Both of them refrained from saying a word on the subject matter. But it was clear that whatever happened set up a wall between them. It's hard, though, trying to pretend as if nothing were wrong.
However, no matter what, you have to stay strong. You're a big girl already, and, well, there'll come a day when it seems like it's you against the world. But always remember that your family and friends will be here with you. Daddy, Mommy, your friends at school, me, we'll stand together to get through it.
How can you be so sure of that?
Because we'll be right here and here.
He points his finger to my head first, and then pointed at my
So
chest.
stay strong, promise?
For a moment he looked almost sad, pleading, but as quickly as had come to the expression disappeared from his face, and he was all smiles once again. Promise. Upon hearing that, Grandpa let out a great big burst of laughter and stood up.
All right then, enough of that. How about I whip up some special homemade dessert? I know I can't accompany you at that new cafe, but we sure can talk and eat while I cook and do some paperwork.
Homemade dessert? I'll race it to the kitchen.
Hey, slow down there. I'm not what I used to be.
He willed me to the very home I love to see you in. Why? Why would you think I would be ready to take it, especially after this? A surge of anger bubbled up within me, but I quickly swallowed it. There was no use in getting mad, especially when the person in question was no longer there. Alright, you guys, so we're already 27 minutes in. So we're going to end that here, and I'll be picking it up right away. That way, you can see what happens next. So, thanks, guys, and see you again soon. Bye!